Life is very complicated. As we know, we live this thing day to day until we don't live anymore. But while we're in this journey, we have good days and unfortunately we have bad days. But sometimes even in our good days, if we have experienced any kind of stressful or distressing event in our past, we can experience something that is called trauma. And that can mean anything that we've seen that has been very terrible to us, a terrible situation, a terrible event. We can remember that. And when it does, we can have an emotional response to it. For certain people, they start crying. Other people is shock. Some folks deny the whole incident. But for some, it could even stop us from bonding with people or having a grudge against people, even people we don't know. Rewind, Nemo. Let me give you an example. Let's say if you're a young lady and you walk in and you catch your boyfriend, booty clapping sounds. Yeah, sleeping with somebody else, even if it's a man, right? Because these things happen. That is a very traumatic experience. And you can remember that. It could always make you emotional because it was somebody that you loved, and it could stop you from trusting people altogether. Now, this video is about JEANNIE MAI, and as we know, Jeezy has divorced her. But there is something that happened in her life that many of us might not know about. And it involves two people, her mother and somebody that the family adopted that was an older young man that was living in the house. And when you know and you hear an older young man, you already know where I'm going with this. So as you know, in certain cultures, people are not so upfront about how they feel. And according to JEANNIE MAI, the Vietnamese culture is similar. People suppress their feelings. They're not open with their feelings. And you know, when somebody is doing something to you that is bad, you might be looked at as the bad person because you're the one that is, you know, revealing this. That also used to be the case in certain parts of America in the early days, but not now. In the age of JEANNIE MAI, if something is happening, especially if you're a young lady and it's an older guy, you're taught to tell right away and get that person into trouble. But that's not what happened with JEANNIE MAI. This is actually what happened.
Anyway, like I was saying, I really looked up to this family member who was babysitting me. We became very close. And I just remember one day, this person sitting really close to me, we were playing video games, and he started to touch my thigh. And I just remember the whole time I keep thinking, this is my family member. I know him like this. I've known him for this long. He's taught me this. He's allowed in my house. This is cool. This is okay. And I also was just stunned because I've never been intimately touched like that. So I couldn't tell if it was wrong. I just knew I was noticing it. I was almost narrating it in my head, but I also just kept playing the video games. Every day, the touching continued a little bit more. Him taking off some of my clothes. We used to have the bathroom in your room. I remember him pulling me into that shower, and it was the first time I've ever seen a grown man and what he looked like. I was still 9 years old. I remember him telling me to touch him in certain ways. When I picture it, I just see flashes of things. I remember seeing the color of my clothes. I remember seeing blue jeans, and then my blue underwear, my green shirt that my mom bought for me. And this happened every day for a few weeks, and then it turned into months. And I remember 1 year going by. I didn't want to say anything because I was afraid. Honestly, because I knew you and Dad were struggling with money, and I knew that we had to have a babysitter, so I was afraid of getting him in trouble because then who would watch over us? And you were always really tired because you had 2 jobs and you were stressed out. And I never thought to come and bring more issues to you. He said certain things that made me afraid of making you angry at me. He would say things like, which is like, your mom's gonna hit you if you talk about the family. Or, không ai tin đâu. Nhiều người nghĩ là con gái điên lắm, which is like, nobody's gonna believe you. People think little girls like you are crazy. I would just come home and go to my room, and I just kind of knew that he would come in at some point, and there was nowhere in my house to run to. This went on for a long time, for a few years. I'm a teenager. I'm like 13, 14. And I remember getting quieter and I started getting nightmares. I felt like you and I grew farther from each other because you were working so much. I approached my mom and I tried to tell you what had happened. You were in the kitchen, you were cooking something. And I remember telling her, almost like pleading with her, like, I don't like this person. I don't want to stay at home with him anymore. Please stay home with me. I remember you were confused. I think you thought we were fighting, like kids fighting, right?
That's what I thought.
Do you remember this moment?
Yeah, I thought you guys fighting all the time. You said you don't like him, so I thought you fight. That's it.
So I remember the words I was saying was trying to get my mom to just get him to leave, but I also wasn't able to say it clearly because I don't even know what that word is in Vietnamese, that someone's touching you. Like, you know what I mean? It's just so weird. So she didn't get it, and she just said, you guys don't like each other right now. Just, ignore each other for now. I kind of went back to my own corner, and he was starting to become more aggressive with what he was doing to me.
Unfortunately, this touching situation stopped Jeannie Mai from talking to her mother from age 16 to 24. She absolutely lost all contact with her mom because a young man was doing something to her that he had no business doing. And the mother just did not have her back. But what does that have to do with Jeezy? I'm glad you asked. You see, that ability, and I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but you just have to see if a woman has trust issues with her own mother, and this happened from a man, a woman could possibly always be guarded to a man for the rest of her life. And when we hear Jeannie Mai talking about the fact that, she has a bad temper, she runs her mouth, things like that, well, it makes sense now because she used to be a submissive young lady because that's how she was raised. And that did not help her. Those attacks kept coming. That violence kept coming. And those things that she didn't like kept coming. When she was trying to be Jeannie Mai, the submissive Vietnamese little girl or young woman, nobody assisted her. It pretty much kept her in a traumatic state of events. But when Jeannie Mai became somebody different, she stood up for herself. Everything about her life as it appeared changed. She went and started doing MAC makeup at 18. She went on the road. She now had confidence to speak up for herself. And in that position of power that she started to get reflected in all of her relationships, even men. So now when she became to deal with Fred Hartise and be dominant, and then even Jeezy and be dominant, well, it's hard for somebody to submit when you were submissive, you were taken advantage of. You were in the worst stage of your life. You were experiencing a certain level of trauma. And for many of us, I know it's hard to go through and it's hard to understand, but for certain women, I can get it now after listening to this experience. It is a very sad experience. And, I hope that something very bad happened to that young man, but I get it now. When you're trying to be a submissive lady in this particular case and, something is not working out and now you're being yourself or you had to be a certain way and things work out for you, it's hard to go back because you don't want to be taken advantage of anymore. But here's what I want to talk about, and that's for men and for women. Being a woman or being a man, it's no excuse for whatever trauma you've been through. That's why it's called therapy. That's why it's called professional help. There are things that in my life that I have seen that can make me not want to even support the black community or not want to support black people or not want to support black women or any of that. But the reality is those people who haven't done nothing to me are not at fault. It's my job to get myself together. We've all been through some sort of traumatic experience. It's according to human life. All humans go through extreme problems, extreme loss, extreme failure, extreme heartbreak. That's a part of humanity. It's a part of life. Other people get over it. So that doesn't mean because you've been hurt, that gives you the right to go out there and treating somebody else like they're crazy or insulting them or whatever the case may yield. We still have to get ourselves together. And as it appears with Jeannie Mai, part of this reason is why she can't, bond to men. And I believe a lot of women have that issue, but not every man is out there looking to get something from you or looking to take advantage of you. And, I get it. Being an aggressive woman works in a career world. It doesn't work in relationships because you don't want a man that you can run over. And at the same time, you expect somebody to deal with your stuff, and it's sad what happened to her. But as you can see, no man is gonna put up with you because you have an issue. You know what I mean? You're a human. You have to take care of your situation. Get your stuff together. Again, we all go through problems in life, and some are greater than the others, especially women. And we have to be sympathetic to the things that women go through. I definitely believe that. However, that is why we have professional help. And if we can't do that, and if we can't be in relationships with people, then we need to not be in relationships with people. It just doesn't make sense to be out there, you know, wasting somebody's time, or because we have our own issues, and you know, they're not the ones that cause the issues for us. You know, they're not the ones that's at fault for that. You know, we need to be responsible for what we're doing. So guys, what do you think? It's your boy O'Shea Duke Jackson, back at it again with another episode of The Celebrity Junk. I really appreciate you for all you. Turn the bell. I'm out.